So one of the first questions I get asked is, what does ShareTheBoard do? What do you use this technology for? A sentence that you'll hear us repeat over and over in a number of videos is that ShareTheBoard makes it possible for you to share a whiteboard with anyone on the planet, legibly, securely, interactively, etc. In this video, I plan to unpack that statement a little bit and talk about the use cases in which ShareTheBoard shines, where it brings value. Starting with the very beginning. So ShareTheBoard makes your whiteboard all these things. Many of us work on our laptops, work with digital content, work online, whatever it might be. And yet there are cases where an analog surface such as a whiteboard or a blackboard just makes sense. You might be teaching a class and covering content that's sort of naturally improvisational, like math or foreign languages even. Or you might be running a workshop or a brainstorming session. Lots of reasons when a whiteboard is the right tool to use. But sometimes when you use that tool, you run the risk of actually excluding some members of your audience from fully participating, right? A good example of that, again, if you're teaching in at a university and you have students, very far back at the end of the classroom, or you're running a workshop and someone is really just more than a few meters away, they might have trouble even seeing your board, much less being able to actually participate actively. So that's the very first thing that ShareTheBoard does. It gives you that basic, it solves that basic need of being able to actually see the board clearly, regardless of where you are, right? And you, as a presenter using ShareTheBoard, you have a couple of options of making your whiteboard legible to your audience. What you're seeing right here is something we call a content overlay, where the content that's being identified in real time is sort of placed over video. It makes this nice sort of, almost augmented reality effect, and makes a lot of sense when you're sharing content you're sharing a board that doesn't have a whole lot of content on it. A lot of folks that use ShareTheBoard use it even in fully in-person cases, again, where you might be teaching in a large classroom. And in those cases, board view is actually much more common, a much more common way of using ShareTheBoard. Board view, as you can see, basically turns your board into a board. It shows you a whiteboard the way that you see it. The way that you see it standing in front of you, which is that there's just content on the board. There's not somebody waving in front of you. There's not video on it. It's like a view of the board. When you give that view to your users, you're not only giving them a legible board, right, without any obstruction, you're also giving them the ability to contribute to that board. So what I showed you right there was sort of just a preview. I, as a presenter, have the ability to kind of toggle that preview using this option right here. But your viewers, the way that they access board view is via this link. So when you set up a meeting, you take this link, you distribute it. You can also do that in advance if you have saved meetings. There's lots of great articles covering all these topics in the FAQ section. I encourage you to go and explore them. So in any case, your viewers, again, whether they're joining remotely or in person, have the ability to connect with your meeting on via mobile devices, via the computer, whatever it might be, and not only see content clearly, but even contribute to it directly. So the way they do that is using digital annotations. And of course, I'm showing you right here the view of the presenter, but viewers have a slightly different interface, but ultimately have the same tools at their disposal. So whether they're taking a line tool, a marker tool, or adding text, here's another point. They have the ability to not only see content, but the ability to interact, contribute content of their own. And this is important, right? These 2 points together, I think, are in many ways sort of the critical components of participation in any board-based interaction, right? If you really want everyone to participate in your whiteboarding session, in your class, you need them first and foremost to be able to see what's on the board, and if needed, to be able to interact with it. Okay, so that takes care of the first two issues. Then there's the notion of security, and this one actually has two meanings. First of all, let me address this right here, this almost panic-inducing event that occurs anytime somebody uses a whiteboard, which we call erasing, right? At some point or another, somebody erases the content on the board, and somebody usually panics because they didn't get a chance to copy it down, or they forgot what was on the board, or they lots of reasons why the lack of memory is considered almost an Achilles heel of analog surfaces. Well, with Share the Board, that Achilles heel is gone. We give all whiteboards memory. Anybody during the session or after the session can take advantage of something that we call, very aptly, board memory. And what that is a play-by-play, sort of an instant replay of everything that was written on the board, both by the presenter and by contributors. You have the ability to view that content in a number of different ways. You have the ability to download that content in a number of different formats. You even have the ability to transcribe that content, and I'll come back to that in just a quick session. But the point is we give whiteboards memory, and importantly, we secure the content on those whiteboards. So maybe this doesn't happen, not as big of a concern in education as it is in business, but in business there's often a situation where somebody writes do not erase or takes out their phone, their personal device, and takes a picture of something on the board after a whiteboarding session because they plan on distributing it, they plan on doing something with it, whatever it might be. But more often they're not using necessarily using a sanctioned device, which triggers all sorts of data security issues, right? Well, Share the Board, there's no need to write do not erase. There's no need to take out your cell phone and shoot pictures of the board because it's being saved and encrypted in real time. So while this content is being identified, Share the Board is encrypting it and keeping it safe, right? There's a number of ways that we deliver that security depending on how we deploy. A lot of great options there. If you have questions for a specific organization, I encourage you to reach out to the team and get more details. The point is, we give whiteboards memory and we secure that content in real time. And then this last point. So you deliver a great lecture, you deliver a great team meeting, whiteboarding session, whatever it might be. Everyone participates because they can see the board clearly, they can interact with it. That content is saved, it's easily distributable, it's encrypted, so there's no leaks, there's no risk of memory loss. There's still that moment when you have to take what was on the board, right, which is analog content, and act on it, do something with it, right? And more often than not, that usually means someone is rewriting, someone is transcribing, someone is making sense of what was on the board. This can take sometimes hours. I've seen boards that are completely chock full of content that needs to be interpreted, not just copied. It's also prone to errors. Again, potentially leaks, mistakes, whatever it might be. Share the Board solves all those problems by giving you something that we call intelligent transcription. So intelligent transcription is a little bit more than just transcription. It is the ability to identify content, handwritten content, in its correct form. So you can see this is a simple example here. The content that I wrote on the board is just that. It's just text. So it's smart enough to know that, okay, those are arrows. Let's save those correctly. But often when you're writing on a board, you are writing very specific types of content. That content might be presented in such a way where the format of the content has meaning. So let's see, a good example would be any kind of charts and graphs, right? So I'm going to put on here one of my favorite examples, favorite pies, Martin's favorite pies. Let's do it that way, Martin's favorite pies. And I'm going to just make these up, so please bear with me. Apple pie, 33% favorite. Let's say pumpkin pie, pumpkin, that's another 33%. Then let's see, another great one is going to be something like chocolate cream. And we're going to give that one 20%, which leaves us with 14% for everything else, 14% other. Okay, now this is a silly example, but it demonstrates two things really well. One, when we write content on a board, it's almost never just text. In fact, that's why whiteboards are great. We think in not just text. We think graphically. We think visually. We think in lots of different ways. Another point is that when we capture content on a board, the way we capture it, the format that we capture it in, also has meaning, right? That it's not just lines and text. In this case, it's a pie chart. And the last point I'll make here is that often when we work on a whiteboard, the content is sloppy. Whether we're working quickly in class or working quickly in a brainstorming session, the goal is to capture content, not make it look pretty, right? We then spend all this time trying to capture it, rewrite it, make it look pretty. With Share the Board, You can capture it, make it look pretty, but you don't have to spend all that time. So again, a couple of clicks and intelligent transcription does its thing. In this case, it's looking for text. It's looking for the handwriting on the board. It's ignoring obstacles such as myself. And you can see on here, it's smart enough to know, hey, that's a pie chart. It's a pie chart with these specific values. I have the ability to even tweak that pie chart if I wanted to by adjusting the values of each one. So maybe I don't want apple. I actually want this to be peach. I can make those changes inside of the application if it makes sense. I can distribute it easily and download it in an editable fashion or download it as a picture, whatever it might be. The point is that it's not just about sharing your whiteboard, it's about making this fantastic tool, any analog surface, right? Piece of paper, flip chart, and making it an active participant in an otherwise, predominantly digital workflow. So that's what ShareTheBoard does. Hopefully that answers a lot of your questions. If you have more, please be sure to check out the FAQ section. Again, lots of great videos and articles there. And if you're still stumped, at any given time, you can sign up for a free demonstration, and we'll be happy to answer all of your questions live. That's it. Thanks.